guys, I'm so excited to be back here with a new video. Today I'm going to be sharing with you 7 tips to get quick relief from piriformis syndrome and sciatica, and also piriformis flare-ups. But before I do so, please consider subscribing if you are new to this channel. I have created this channel specifically to help people with piriformis syndrome, back pain, and sciatica. So make sure to subscribe and also to enable the notifications so that you don't miss any new videos. So if you're familiar with my channel, you know that I'm all about getting long-term relief from piriformis syndrome. However, I know that when you are experiencing pain, we all want a quick fix. We want to get relief right away. And there were so many mistakes that I made trying to get that quick relief that actually did the complete opposite. It made the pain worse and it lengthened my recovery. So I want to share with you here the things that I do right now whenever I feel like I push it too much, or when I'm feeling the piriformis acting up or tightening. Piriformis syndrome is an extremely frustrating condition. I have suffered from it for many years, about 6 to 7 years of just constant pain. So I know that it's very frustrating, it's very confusing. You're going in different directions to try to figure out why the pain just won't stop. So I have made several videos about that I will link below. And just briefly, the piriformis muscle originates from the anterior sacrum, so S2 to S4, and sacroiliac joint, passing transversely through the greater sciatic foramen and inserting into the greater trochanter. So it is a very important hip stabilizer. And the greater sciatic foramen is an opening in the human pelvis. The muscle, the piriformis muscle, passes through that foramen and occupies most of its volume. This is why many times piriformis syndrome can also irritate the sciatic nerve, and it can also cause sciatica. The majority of the population, the sciatic nerve passes below the piriformis muscle. When we have piriformis syndrome, that's when the muscle is spasming, it shortens. The piriformis muscle becomes overactive, tight, and sometimes it exerts pressure on the sciatic nerve. And I have made videos about fixing the root cause of piriformis syndrome, or at least helping you get started, but there are a lot of causes for that. Piriformis syndrome can have many causes, from bad posture, flawed movement patterns that take years, to get to piriformis syndrome. We're not moving properly, we sit too much, there's just overactivity in the hip flexors, we're not working the glutes, and year after year after year, that takes the toll on the hips. And then you have these very small, deep muscles such as the piriformis that are taking the load and compensating when they shouldn't be. And once the muscle starts to become sensitive to the triggers, it's very hard to it takes time to desensitize the muscle to the trigger. For example, for a lot of people, it's the driving that triggers piriformis syndrome, or sitting for a long time. So for many people, it's when they're at work that they start to experience spasms. So this is why it's very important to identify these triggers, to minimize them, and also fix the posture and fix the imbalances to get that long-term relief. So just quickly, I want to say that sciatica is different from piriformis syndrome, even though piriformis syndrome can also have symptoms that include sciatica, because as I said, the muscle will irritate the nerve if it spasms too much. However, sciatica alone has different causes which are related to disc compression or disc issues, such as a disc herniation or a disc bulge. A lot of people, they only have sciatica, they don't have piriformis pain. Piriformis pain is very local to the buttocks, and it's usually on the side of the glutes. It's deep and it stays there most of the time. About 90% of the time, it's only felt on the side of the glute. So after this quick intro, I just want to share now the 7 tips to get relief from piriformis syndrome. And I really hope that these tips are going to be different from what you're doing right now, especially if you haven't been able to get relief from maybe the treatments you're getting, or maybe you're trying to find something else. Number one thing to get quick relief from piriformis syndrome is actually not doing too much. When it comes to piriformis pain, less is more. Believe me, I have made the mistake. Whenever I felt that pain, I would rush to just get on the floor, do a lot of stretches. I remember my routines were about an hour long in the morning. Just the morning, I would be stretching, foam rolling, exercising, doing all kinds of things. And then later after work, I will be going to physiotherapy and then having an appointment in the morning for chiropractic adjustments. So just don't do a lot, especially when you're feeling the pain, because that can irritate the muscle more and that can cause more pain and more flare-ups. So this is the number one tip that I have for you. Try to resist the temptation to do so much, to book all kinds of appointments to get that relief. The second tip is, instead of rushing to start releasing the piriformis, try to work instead on the TFL, the adductors, and the QL muscles. So I have found that many times tightness in those areas can affect the piriformis and the hips, and I would get the exact same type of pain. So these are muscles that get extremely tight because they're always working. We don't really work on them that much. If you notice, the majority of people, they don't really work on these muscles that much. The QL is so important in maintaining posture, and when we're sitting a lot, the QL tightens up. And because it's connected to the pelvis as well as the spine, when it shortens, it definitely creates some tightness in the glutes. So we think it's the piriformis. Same thing happens with the TFL. Because of its location, it can also create and radiate some pain towards where the piriformis is. So I want you to try the tutorials that I already have, and you can release the QL with the massage ball. You can release the TFL with the foam roller. You can also use a handheld roller if you have trouble getting on the floor, and try to work on these muscles first. I also find that the adductors tighten up, and again, because of that connection to the pelvis, they can definitely start to pull the knees inwards and they can create tightness. So work on these muscles first and see how you're feeling after. Because I can assure you that you're gonna feel some type of relief working on these muscles alone, just because of their tendency to tighten up. The third thing is, of course, I want you to reduce your intensity of training. So if you are someone who's very active, you go for runs, walks, like long distance walking. If you lift a lot of weights, try to just reduce the intensity. And you can replace some of the high impact exercises with low impact exercises, such as going for walks. So 20 to 30-minute walks, and see how you're feeling. Walking is the safest low impact activity you can do. It's great for your whole body, and it is a way for you to stay active until you can feel better. But just try to minimize any high impact exercises you're doing, because it can be too much on the joint and also on the muscle. Tip number 4 is to use heat therapy instead of cold therapy. Using ice is great for an acute injury, for strains or fractures, but when it comes to chronic muscular pain, I have found that heat actually works better. So things that you can do is a warm bath every night, and just using warmer than usual water on your hip. And also you can use things like heating pads or an acupressure mat, which is a tool that I use consistently still. And I just love how it not only helps me reduce tightness and release muscular tension, but it also warms up the area, which I really like. So that helps to draw nutrients into that area and oxygen, and just increase blood flow overall. So the next tip that I have is magnesium. And I have been using magnesium for many years now. It's been a great natural muscle relaxant. I take it later in the day, about 1 hour before I want to go to bed. I have found that it really helps relax the muscles. So this is it was kind of my way to replace muscle relaxants when I had a lot of pains. If you are using any medication right now, if you've never taken magnesium before, I highly recommend, of course, that you check with your physician just to see if the mixture of the supplement with your current medication, if that's okay. You know, consult with your doctor before you take on any new supplements or anything different. So the next thing that I do is I always try to optimize my posture as much as I can, especially for piriformis relief. So one thing you can do, and I do share this in my video about sitting tips specifically for piriformis relief, is that you want to try to elevate your hips so that your hips are a little bit higher than your knees. I have found that to be really helpful when it comes to piriformis pain, especially when sitting. You can do that by just placing, you can fold a blanket and put it on the chair and you can sit on it, and that would elevate your hips. You can also use a sit-in pad. And the other thing also, I use a lumbar support as well, especially if you have also some, spinal issues. But having that lumbar support, you can relax your back. The muscles such as the QL that I mentioned before, they don't have to work that hard to stabilize your posture. So, and the lumbar support, of course, takes the load off of the lumbar spine. So highly recommend that you get a lumbar support, and you don't even have to buy one. You can use a pillow, anything made of memory foam works really great. And this way that you can optimize your posture and minimize tension put on your spine and your hips. So this will allow you to work if you have a desk job, or even at home if you want to work on your desk or sit on, chair. You can use these tips to get relief. And we all know how challenging it is when you're trying to get something done, and there's just that achiness, in the hips, and you can't concentrate because you just want to get up and maybe lie down, or, it's very frustrating. So I definitely get it. In terms of treatment, so I know that I talk about not rushing, not doing so much at the same time. However, from my experience, the only treatments that actually helped me when the pain was bad and it got me relief was dry needling. It's very gentle, and it helps to release not only the muscle, but the fascia that connects all of the tissue. Sometimes that can tighten up. And I have found the dry needling to work really well for piriformis syndrome and also for TFL tightness. And of course, you can definitely get a massage, like a gentle massage. But again, just be careful. The length, just be careful with that, because sometimes people want to focus on one area for a whole hour. And I shared this in an email in my newsletter. You don't want to spend the whole hour, or 15 minutes of the massage session just releasing the piriformis, just putting pressure on it, because that is definitely too much on the muscle. So maybe you can schedule a full body massage and get the benefit of, just a relaxation with some work, of course, on the hips and the piriformis. But just don't schedule the whole hour to just work on one area, because that can definitely backfire, especially when you're going through a piriformis flare-up. And I hope that with all of these things that you are able to get some relief. Usually when I do this, I feel like after a few days, the muscle, it starts to kind of settle down. And once I start to feel a little better, and whatever the flare-up, 1 to 3 days, it has settled down, I introduce gentle glute med exercises such as the side-to-side walks with the band, or the leg raises against the wall that I have showed before. Keep it very gentle, minimum, don't overdo it again. Do some deep core activation exercises, but just be careful not to go back to what you used to do right away at the same intensity. So you don't want to be doing that, because you can definitely, you can flare things up again or experience a setback. So you can definitely do some glute med exercises. 2 exercises is okay in the beginning, and of course see how you're feeling afterward. Usually when I do the glute exercises, I always follow with the acupressure mat. I do that afterward just to help release whatever tension is there. And before I do any exercises, I would use the foam roller to release the quads, the hamstrings, the TFL, and the QL. I really work on those muscles to release any trigger points, anything that's going to restrict good movement and proper posture during those exercises. You do want to be working on the imbalances and to get long-term relief, and I have some great resources that I will put below the video. and as well as many videos that I have made about testing the piriformis, doing some tests to see if it's tight, if it does need to be stretched. You may have noticed that I'm not even mentioning stretching or strengthening the piriformis, because from my experience, many times we don't really have to do anything specific to the piriformis. Most of this time it's just compensating for something else, and whenever I am working on another area, then I get relief from the piriformis. And that's been my experience, and I have spent many years just focusing on the piriformis. When I started to shift to a different strategy, that's when I started to get different results. The next step would be, if you want to test, to do a few tests to see if the piriformis is actually tight. If you do want to start to stretch it a little more, I will include the video that I did about how to test for piriformis tightness, because not always that the piriformis needs to be stretched, and when we start to overstretch a muscle, we're just lengthening it more and we're causing more weakness. So be very careful with overstretching. Only use gentle stretches a few times a week, but don't overdo it. So I sincerely hope that these tips are going to help you get relief. I know that if you are going through a flare-up right now, I know it's very hard. It's really frustrating, but I can assure you that you can get better. Just be patient, follow these tips. Please watch my videos on this channel. I share a lot of things and mistakes I made, and just so many things that took me many years to learn from. So I feel like if you can watch those videos and learn from my lessons, that you don't have to repeat the same things. And please, again, consider subscribing and liking this video if you found it helpful, and I will see you guys in the next one.